Are you familiar with FBI Special Agents Kyle Strzrok-ing?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name. I'm familiar with the name. I'm familiar with the name.
Former FBI agent Kyle Strzrok-ing, who recently received a letter from the FBI saying, be quiet about this. Kyle, welcome to the show. You're not following orders.
So, Kyle, you had some issues that brought you here as a whistleblower. Joining me now to discuss is FBI whistleblower Kyle Strzrok-ing. Kyle, thanks for spending some time with us again. Joining me now is FBI whistleblower Kyle Strzrok-ing. Joining me now is a frequent guest of the show, former FBI Special Agent whistleblower as well, Kyle Strzrok-ing.
Let's bring in Kyle Strzrok-ing. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Right, we're lucky to have him with us today. He's Kyle Strzrok-ing, a real whistleblower himself.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Strzrok-ing brought it to the public, and we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Why did you decide to become a whistleblower?
I just made a decision that this is America's information, it's not mine, and I'm not going to let the FBI steamroll me and my family.
Kyle Strzrok-ing, he's a former FBI agent. He's the host of the Kyle Strzrok-ing podcast, and he joins us on the phone. Hello, Kyle. Great to have you back with us, sir.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Kyle Strzrok-ing.
Let's turn it over to two former FBI special agents turned whistleblowers who are holding the Bureau accountable, Steve Friend and Kyle Strzrok-ing.
A brave FBI whistleblower who is a friend of our show, also Dan Bongino's, Kyle Strzrok-ing. He's the host of something that strangely is called The Kyle Strzrok-ing Show. Follow him on Twitter. I'm Sebastian Gorka. I'll call you later. We'll talk guns. We'll talk optics.
All right. Any update on your whistleblower situation?
No, I expect to be attacked for the foreseeable future.
Okay. At least you're realistic. Thanks so much, Kyle.
All right. Kyle Strzrok-ing, former FBI agent, also host of the Kyle Strzrok-ing podcast. Thanks as always, Kyle. Good to talk to you today, sir.
Perfect, man. God bless you, brother. Thank you for standing up for the truth, man. Thank you for coming on.
Steve, Kyle, you guys are great Americans, and it's an honor to have you on the program. Have a great weekend.
And follow him, Kyle Strzrok-ing, with a PH on Twitter. God bless you, Kyle. This is
Well, so Kyle, thank you so much for joining us. Great chatting with you.
Kyle Strzrok-ing, thank you.
Kyle Strzrok-ing, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Strzrok-ing.
Welcome to the Kyle Strzrok-ing Show. Today is September the 15th. It's garbage day here in Liberty Hill, Texas, which means there may be a garbage truck in the background you can hear. I am, and make sure you take out your garbage too. I am very happy to have my buddy Steve Friend on. He's going to be joining us in just a moment. We're going to give you a little preview about what's going on today. So today is a wrap up for the week. There's been a whole lot going on there. We're going to run you through some videos that I think are of relevance to many of you. We had Mike Benz on yesterday, and in true form, logged off the show, turned around and found some of that weird mealy mouth government speak, that digital MK Ultra coming out of the UN. So I think that's going to be really interesting to you. We've got people calling for the American Stasi and a purity test inside the FBI, people who need to protect the FBI from you, the American public, those dangerous American patriots who are so mean to the FBI. And they brought out none other than Peter Strzrok. So we're going to play my favorite weasel from the FBI, known adulterer and gut-wrenching weirdo Peter Strzrok will be joining our little broadcast as we play an MSNBC clip, which is always nauseating. So make sure you have your vomit bags ready. What else are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about the do's and don'ts in law enforcement. We always like to do a little bit of a recap of what's been going on, videos that have come out of the law enforcement realm. So Steve and I are going to cover down on something here that I'm going to call the trophy shot. We should definitely talk about that. Before that, let's do a quick thank you to our sponsors. And I just want you guys to know, and Ryan, I may even have you pull this up in a second. We talked to the founder of Securit, the CEO of Securit the other day, the safe company that I actually use. I had a really nice conversation with him yesterday. They have launched a new branding, and they're talking about sponsorship with us. I think it's an awesome partnership because it's nothing better than dealing with companies that you already like and love and use their products. So we may pull their website up and take a look at their new branding. But before we do that, let me say some thanks real quick to people that have been with us since the beginning. This is our OG sponsor, Patriot Coolers. I'm about to do an order with Patriot Coolers too. I'm going to replace my large cooler. I keep it in the back of my minivan when we go and do Costco runs because there's nothing worse than getting home with like spoiled yogurt or spoiled, frozen goods. I hate having to claw all my strawberries apart. So go to patriotcoolers.com. Use promo code Kyle. It's just KYLE. 4 little letters gets you 10% off. That's always great. $50 or more is going to get you free shipping. They've got great products there. And I'm about to order the gray version of their large 50 quart and put that in the back of my minivan to transport the Seraphin family groceries. You never know when you might need to keep something hot or cold. These are the great ones to do it. Patriotcoolers.com, promo code Kyle, KYLE. My buddies over at Catholic Vote, check them out. Check out The Loop. I actually got The Loop out here in front of me today, but they are America's top advocacy group for faith, family, and freedom. That is just things in the American way. Let's just read this real quickly here. Actually, while we're doing that, I'm going to bring this up. You guys can see the command post here that I work out of. This is my version of The Loop. It's on my cell phone right now. It's from the 15th. It says Hunter Biden indicted. They might have misspelled the word indicted. I may have to tell Mercer to get that fixed up. Indicted on gun charges. Federal prosecutors finally coming to realize that if you claim that you're a drug addict, that maybe you shouldn't be buying a really nice Colt revolver, which Hunter did in 2018 while he was supposedly under the influence of crack. Maybe still doing that. Maybe leaving it in the White House. We don't know. CNN grilling a teachers union head. There's a story about that. CNN hostess Abby Phillips talking to the Chicago Teachers Union. Let's see. Unions making backroom deals about school choice. That's not surprising. Catholic Cardinal warning in advance of the Agenda 2030. That's probably all going to be relevant to what we're talking about today with the UN, which seems to be pretty strange. I thought they were just supposed to keep us out of war, but apparently they want to actually police your thoughts. That's nice. DOJ asking the Supreme Court to shut down one of these rulings about abortion. A lot of good stuff in there. Check out the Loop, you guys. And then lastly, here it is. There's our Suspendables merch. You can check out the merch store, the-suspendables.com. Free the merch and make sure you get something from Garrett O'Boyle's store here. They are shipping out soon. Really good looking t-shirts. The guy, he sent me some of the Last Line, which is the name of his Substack and his old t-shirt company. All good stuff. So check out them. And let's get launched. I saw people were excited about that, the new angle. That's the studio we're in. What does that look like? Have they rebranded it yet? Has it launched? What about the main page up there, if you could? Ryan?
Which one's that? Click on Secure It?
Just the main page to see if they've set it up. They haven't got it up yet. So there's going to be some new branding here. I think they've told me they've got a new logo, which is a digital wolf, which I'm into. We'll keep an eye on that, folks. Look forward to some connections, Kyle Seraphin Show and Secure It. All right, let's bring on the real Steve Friend. You guys know him, you know him, and you love him. It's at Real Steve Friend on Twitter and real_Steve Friend on True Social. How you doing, buddy? Are you there?
He's coming in 1 second, Kyle. I got to add him to the scene.
Oh, we got to add him to the scene. All right. So we're going to have a first reflection. I think we're going to start off with the police state trailer. So I'm going to have you watch a little show with us, and then we'll talk about it for people. It's Friday, so it's kind of a breakdown day. Let's do this trailer. If you guys haven't seen this, Steve and I had a little bit of part in this. We're going to talk to you about that in just a second. So let's go ahead and run video number 5, if you would, Ryan.
Chief Division Counsel and DOJ have approved a no-knock breach. We want the subject to be on display, doing the walk of shame, full visual impact. Any questions?
Are we becoming a police state?
government told American citizens they couldn't go to church on Sunday.
For the first time in my life, I'm saying to myself, am I going to get a knock at the door?
FBI warrant, come to the door now!
The Patriot Act and FISA were used against Donald Trump.
These individuals have commissioned the biggest propaganda play in U.S. history.
They don't go after the people that rigged the election. They go after the people that want to find out what the hell happened.
We don't need to have a crime. What we need is a person to look at. And then we go find out what crime you did.
FBI! Our focus is shifting. Our main priority as a bureau is going to be domestic terrorism.
Really paints anybody who's right of center.
If you're a pro-life, pro-family Catholic, they define you as radical.
These are anti-government.
We have freedom of religion and freedom of speech.
Violent extremists, and they must be dealt with. We can do anything we want.
There it is, the trailer for Police State, the new Dinesh D'Souza film that the Suspendables had a hand in. Folks, you can find tickets there on October 23rd and 25th. These are private engagements, so these are sold-out theaters that the studio has paid for, and there will be no signage. It's like if you had a friend in the movie business making you a movie just for you. Steve, you want to talk about our role in that and what we did there?
Yeah, excited to finally. Now that we've kind of kept it on the low key here, but you and I had the opportunity to fly out and assist as technical advisors when it came to the dramatization of what went on with Liberty City 7, and then with this fictional case that's being worked to demonstrate the growing police state and kind of make it look more authentic. So we got a chance to work with the day actors and get them up to speed, make it looking like a tactical team. And then also do the roundtable discussion that you saw a clip for you in making your great trailer comment. I unfortunately dropped two very pointed trailer lines that I was hoping would get in, but lost my voice. So
you sounded like Robert F. Kennedy when you were on that panel.
They assured me that they'd be able to actually use technology to get my voice cleaned up, but if they weren't able to, that they would actually have me record it later. I never did a recording afterwards. So they either cut me entirely or they were actually able to make my voice, which down. I mean, I made RFK sound like James Earl Jones. It was gone completely.
It was actually kind of surreal. I've actually never seen someone quote unquote lose their voice to the level that Steve did. It was right overnight. It was amazing.
We were talking
the night before. We're like, hey, what's up, buddy? And then the next morning you're like, I wish that there was a way I could talk. It was crazy, people.
Garrett and I did the PBD podcast that morning, and it was like a 3-hour podcast. And I went back and listened, and from hour 1 to hour 3, you could start hearing it. My voice.
See just the visual curve of Steve's vocal abilities just trail off. So they didn't do any ADR on you. They didn't do the dubbing. So maybe you'll sound wild. All that being said, I want to talk about the term police state, because I know that if anybody listens to Dan Bongino's show, and many of our listeners are in common, you've been hearing Dan say this for a while. Part of it is because this is the movie that we've done, but part of it is because that term was available to us prior to doing this movie. And people have kind of called us out. I've seen it on social media. They're like, oh, now you guys are against the police. Do you want to talk about what the word police state actually means? Are we against local police? Is that what we're trying to say?
No, absolutely. I was in the space with you where that question was posed, because I think the gentleman was actually worried about going to his group of police friends and saying, hey, you should go see this movie. He was wanting to get some, ammunition, intellectual ammunition for that. And I think with a actual police state, the idea is that it's an all-encompassing, encroaching government abuse that's been weaponized against the people, and especially from a federal standpoint, from a national standpoint. People think of a police state, they think of like North Korea, where they're doing the bidding of a despot and keeping the normal citizen, keeping them under their thumb. I don't think it's any sort of knock on the police. It's certainly not a defund the police. Ilhan Omar is not going to be coming to the movie premiere and touting it. It's dealing with a federal government that is infringing on folks' rights rather than law enforcement, which is standing in the gap against people who want to harm you and actually deprive you of your rights.
So there's a concept of police powers, which exists for every level of government all the way down. And when we talk about the U.S. government, the fundamental ability of the government to enact laws to coerce citizenry for the public good, that's the police powers. And when you abuse those police powers, which we could very easily call it the totalitarian state or the authoritarian state. That's what we mean when we talk about a police state. And most people, they're familiar with police powers. They've just never heard them called that before.
And I have to forgive me. I don't remember each of the terms that he used, but Dinesh, in his conversations with us, said, if this is an evolution that started with, and is coming to its final fruition as a police state. But before that, it was, a larger encompassing government where it was a nanny state. And then now, because after the LBJ in bringing the federal government so large, and then that has come to pass with the policing powers of an FBI or something like that after 9/11, and that's just a natural evolution.
100%. And there's also a couple of ways that these police states can evolve. They can evolve out of a single party system. They can evolve out of that strongman dictator role, or they can kind of be a rule of oligarchs, which is kind of what our fear is with the uniparty. There's some pretty obvious connections to our current state and how far along we are onto that devolution of police state. I wanted to play a video for you and get your reaction. This is coming out yesterday. I actually started following this woman on Twitter. I went and hunted her down. She works for the UN, and she had a few things to say that I think are some of the most dystopian sentiments that somebody in a position of power could give. But it's perfect segue from what we talked about with Mike Benz yesterday. And if you did not listen to Mike Benz, go back and listen to yesterday's show, because the stuff that he was dropping, Mike is a belt-fed machine gun of truth. He just cannot be slowed down. My only job is to cool the barrel. I just pour water on the barrel and try to keep it pointed in the right direction. He can just go all day. But let's do video number 3, Ryan, if you would. This is a discussion of what they used to be able to do, and they're concerned that they can't do the same thing anymore. God forbid. Maybe we can play video number 3 and see what we think.
And of course, firings at Twitter have left us with no one to call to flag content that is abusive or even incitement to violence. We're now seeing that almost anyone can promote disinformation for the price of a blue tick. So it's not all bad. We have teamed up with the platforms to elevate reliable information around COVID and climate, to amplify trusted messengers, and we have quite an army of them out there who want to take UN content and promote it within their followings, and also educating users on how to slow the spread of disinformation. Our new slogan that we want to have everybody have in their ear when they're online is pause, take care before you share. But yet we do feel like we are in an information war, and that we need to massively ramp up our response. So we're creating at the UN a central capacity to monitor and also have the ability to rapidly react when mis and disinformation and hate speech is threatening not just our people, our operations, but also the issues and the causes that we're working on. But also, we're going to be gearing up our verified initiative around climate change and developing this UN code of conduct on information integrity on digital platforms, hoping to set global standards that we can all advocate around so that we can collectively work for a more humane internet.
Oh, they want to have a more humane internet. If you could just stop, take care before you share, because we're in an information war. Is she saying that Alex Jones was right? Is that what she was saying there, Steve?
I couldn't get beyond her presentation, to be honest.
Is she wearing men's tighty-whities? That was the question coming out of the chat. That might be a man. Is that a man?
Who am I to say? And who are you to assume that there's more than 2 genders? I mean, let's be honest. She could identify as a attack helicopter, and you'd have to recognize that she's an Apache. She's a
WMD. She's a weapon of mass disinformation.
She is. I think Jesse Kelly has labeled it. She's the worst, most evil type of person, and that's a liberal white woman who sits up there as a Karen and has a faux pearl clutching. Like, how dare these people?
They're using their blue check marks.
We have to take them under. And then she even compared it to a spread of a virus. So that's what your UN views free speech.
Every time I hear the word "a virus" like that, I always think of the great moment in The Matrix, where Agent Smith is like, a virus. You know, he says it like it's so
Mr.
detestable. And he's talking about humanity. He's talking about human beings and the truth that they might understand.
Yeah, and then she tries to bring in, she obviously didn't get her full download because she had to read off of her iPad there. If she'd actually properly prepared, she could have just recited all this. We had to go to climate, we had to go to free speech, and then to COVID misinformation. And I'm thinking like, oh, you mean like when the CIA bribed analysts to say that the virus came from a wet market, as it's been revealed this week by another whistleblower? And it was a 7-person panel, and 6 of them got bribed, and the 7th one was a senior guy who now left the CIA and goes to work for a private organization that said that all the was it Hunter Biden laptop was all the hallmarks of a Russian disinformation. So definitely nothing to concern yourself with the American intelligence community.
That sounds like a very Putin-loving position you're taking there, Steve. Have you thought about that? Have you considered your sins?
I have. I thought about it and prayed about it, and I will proceed, despite the fact that I'm probably a domestic terrorist somewhere within the FBI system.
Isn't that something? So, you know, Alex Jones originally had a website that was called Prison Planet. That was his first website before it was called the InfoWars. Now it's Banned TV and stuff like that. And it seems like he actually had them backwards. The InfoWar is to keep us from the prison planet, but they're dead set on getting us there, aren't they?
Yeah, and look, it's a UN or the World Economic Forum or it's the World Health Organization. They can't help but pull the shades back a little bit. It always comes down to we just need to reduce population.
We just need to control you just a little.
If we control it, it'll be done.
Your thoughts.
Well, we'll use our nice NPR voices as we're advocating for the most radical, deplorable things possible. Like, if we can just reduce population down to how it was a few centuries ago. I mean, that'll require you killing about 6 or 7 billion people, but we'll do it with a nice drive time tone like you find on NPR.
And, you know, it really is good for the planet. And that's what's the ultimate good, is that we care about this rock of Earth that we all walk around on.
Yeah, all of human history until like, I don't know, a couple of decades ago was Mother Nature trying to kill us and us trying to protect ourselves. But now all of a sudden we're a threat. I like the George Carlin bit where he was talking about the planet is fine. Like, the planet is fine. It's dealt with worldwide floods and tectonic shifts and meteor strikes. The planet probably just brought about people because they wanted to have plastic. So now it could be the Earth plus plastic and then just shake us off like a flake.
Well, I used to think about this when I was a teenager, because people were talking about the hole in the ozone layer and the fact that we were destroying the planet and all the things out there. And even as a teenager, acid rain was going to kill us all. We were going to walk out and just have our skin burn. And it was really apparent to me, even as a teenager, that the only thing that we could do is make the planet uninhabitable for ourselves. The planet was going to keep existing. It's a bunch of rock that spins around in the middle of in the middle of space. So if we make it uninhabitable for ourselves, it's our own problem. I get that. But we don't need to do anything for the quote unquote good of the planet. There's no moral good in the planet. The moral good is whether or not human beings are living a more fulfilled life. And people are living less in poverty and have more capabilities and opportunities than they've ever had before. And there's more of us, shockingly. The first billion people showed up in the year 1800 or so. That's about the time the human population hit 1 billion. We've gone off like a rocket since then because of food capabilities and all the technologies, the industrial revolution that we brought forward. A lot of other bad things have come along with it too. Mostly, I feel like it's industrial-based baking. You're not a bread guy at all. I think you're avoided that, so you're living the dream. But
yeah, I'm trying to avoid that. You know, you got to rock the gluten-free diet in the Friend household. That's a must. But
or you could just be a Steve Friend and not eat. I think I watched you not eat for 4 days. What was that about? He's still out running 12 miles every day, people. But I'm hanging out with Steve, and it's like, did you eat today? And he's like, no, I got bored last night. I just didn't eat. I just went home.
Yeah, I was just tired. I mean,
just chose not to eat for a couple days.
You don't need to. It's fine. That's when the alternative is you
were
have
cranky
to
when we were doing that movie. You were cranky.
I was more tired than I was hungry. I mean, your alternative was to eat like a processed honey bun or something that Bruce had to go run and get. Which we should actually recognize Bruce, the producer of that film. He and I had like 8-hour chat where we were like in a cigar bar like the days leading up to it, and just a really like interesting, smart, intellectual guy.
For sure.
And he was doing everything. He wasn't just like the executive who just sits there and just has his nice chair and watches from on high. Like,
he was a servant.
He was running to Costco to go get food for the crew. I mean, that's pretty cool. I guess that's kind of how you have to do it though, if you're in the conservative sphere of Hollywood, because it's just so small to keep people away.
people were asking me because they saw my Twitter post of where I'm working right now. And this is in the background. This is a book that was sent to me by Garrett O'Boyle. I didn't even know if I was going to bring this up, but it's called The Mission, the Men and Me. It's by Pete Blaber. He's a former Delta Force commander. And those are the order of priorities when you are a leader. If you're a real leader, the mission first. I think your family can come before that in some ways, because if you're not ready to go do it, but you go do the mission when you're on mission. And Bruce was really great about doing that. Then it's the men, the people that are actually doing the mission. And then you. There's another book that's called Leaders Eat Last. It's a very Christian principle, but it's also like the best way to get people on board with your mission set if you want to be successful. You get people to do what you need to do because you are the one you think of last. Your needs come last. The needs of the mission are first, those that are doing the mission, and then yourself. If you never read The Men, the Mission, and Me, it's actually a really easy lessons from a former Delta Force commander. It's cool guy stuff because it's talking about a Delta Force guy working in war zones and cold zones. They're doing non-attributable missions, and yet the missions hold forth whether it's how you handle your household or how you handle your friendships or how you handle your business. Definitely check that out. I don't recommend a lot of books, but this is one of them. And Garrett sent it to me right when I got suspended. And he said, thanks for putting the mission first. The mission was upholding the oath. That's why you and I think get along as well.
Yeah, I agree with you on that entirely. Actually, I was talking about Hal Moore recently with another parent of my son that my son was playing after school with our playground. And we just got on the subject of, well, it was the We Were Soldiers book and then movie. And I'm just reminded of that I will be the first to get off the helicopter and I will be the last one to get on. And we're all coming home no matter what. And that's true leadership. And that's what he embodied through that ordeal in Vietnam.
In the military, we call that leading from the front. We got a lot of people in the FBI that like to lead from the rear. So I want to go video number 4, talk about a guy that needs a kick in the rear and apparently has no shame whatsoever. It can't happen for him. He cannot look in the mirror and think, I'm a hideously horrible human being who's done terrible things and I should be ashamed of myself. Instead of doing that, he's out on MSNBC saying that we need a security force for the security force. We need something to protect the armed federal agents from the mean, dirty peasants that are out there trying to stop political persecutions. Listen to the first couple lines that this lady says. There is zero correction given. All right. Zero correction given. Let's pay our little friend, the famous weasel of the FBI, Peter Strzrok.
If we are too timid in the way we talk about this, I mean, these are threats to terrorize people who are public servants doing their jobs for political purpose. We see something, are we saying something, and are we saying the right thing?
Well, in my opinion, we're not doing enough. I mean, look, when push comes to shove, absolutely the FBI and DOJ need to band together and protect their personnel to allow them to do their job. They're going to do it, but they need to be able to do that without fear for their lives. When the FBI was fighting Al Capone, there was not a unit dedicated to protecting FBI personnel. When the FBI was fighting organized crime families in New York and all around the U.S., there was not a unit dedicated to protecting FBI personnel. I'm struck by the fact you threw up that quote from testimony from an FBI agent to the House Judiciary Committee. Who's the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee? Jim Jordan. And yet Jim Jordan, hearing that these threats to this AUSA are coming about from being publicized, he nevertheless goes on television and, appears in the same, little snips that you showed, repeating the name of this AUSA. So congressmen, senators, they don't care about this threat, but we need to be doing more. In my opinion, I'm glad to see the FBI and Director Wray and others starting to talk about this, but we need to talk about it even more because it's not getting better. If anything, it's getting worse, and it's getting worse behind the testimony and the statements of senators and congressmen, not fringe, sort of outcasts and outliers, but mainstream, reputable national politicians. And it's got to stop.
It's interesting when you say that. So there's no unit created to protect the agents that were prosecuting Al Capone. And your comment, Pete, about the elected officials who are threatening these individuals in the same way that Republicans put out enough disinformation for the Russian troll farms to be rendered nearly irrelevant, although I'm sure they'll be busy in 2020. You've got Republicans doing all of the mob-like threatening and intimidation and endangering of prosecutors that you need the Proud Boys for. It's just
that's all we can do. That's all we can do. Steve, can we protect these AUSAs? Can we hide these names of public officials and FBI agents? I mean, they're so mean to them. They're so mean as they do political prosecutions.
There was so much in that clip. I'm having a hard time actually keeping up with all the things I want to say. First of all, I want to thank you for allowing me to watch the most MSNBC that I've watched in my entire life.
It's my pleasure.
And it was very apparent why I don't watch. But Pete Strzrok, I guess he goes by Pete now. Maybe Lisa preferred that. So Pete Strzrok sits in his office there with, I'm sure, several hundred books that he's never read, including his, which he probably had ghostwritten, strategically placed over his right shoulder so that you can go.
Do you know what the name of his book is?
Oh, no, never wasted the brain cells. Just send it.
It's called Compromised.
Is there
more of a cell phone? Okay, so while Steve is reflecting on this, I want people to watch this. Ryan, if you'll play the clip without any audio, when it shows the wide shot of Peter Strzrok's room, and you can skip to it if you can, or otherwise we'll just let it run. But while Steve is reflecting, I want people to look over Pete's left shoulder. There is going to be a set of cover sheets for secret and top secret documents, the same things they laid out for the trophy shot at Donald Trump's office. And there's also a set of handcuffs that probably have never been used because he was a CIA agent. Steve, keep talking, but we're going to watch this in the background. You can see over his right shoulder is the book Compromise. On the left shoulder, down at the bottom there, next to his dog, which is twitching.
Nice catch by the dog. Okay.
There. Yeah, you've got
the handcuffs that he probably used with.
Those are cover sheets for secret and top secret documents. Those are strategically positioned there for his very well curated garbage IKEA background. All right, keep going. Tell me what you think.
He also has his wedding picture there too. And I'm saying that those handcuffs were probably for playtime with Lisa.
Those are ceremonial handcuffs for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
The calling for a Praetorian Guard for the FBI when they didn't need one for Al Capone because these dastardly MAGA people are far worse than organized crime that necessitated actually developing an FBI with weapons to combat. Or organized crime later on in the 90s, which had New York down to its knees until Giuliani cleaned it up. When I think of what...
All right, that's all I can watch that guy's face. Go ahead and cut him away. Cut away from him. Go back to Steve.
So let me get this straight. We need a Praetorian Guard to protect armed agents who received unlimited amount of training. Anytime you want to shoot in the FBI, you can go shoot. Unlimited amount of ammunition. The government pays for your training, pays for your ammunition, pays for your firearms, and gives you the broadest, widest, deadly force policy that I've ever encountered anytime post Tennessee v. Gardner, which before that, for those who don't know, Tennessee v. Gardner, you could shoot a fleeing subject. There didn't have to be a threat of loss of life or serious injury. If a guy robbed a liquor store and you saw him run away, as a police, you could just shoot him in the back. That was perfectly legal before the Tennessee v. Gardner decision came out. But the FBI's use of force policy is by far the broadest I've ever encountered. We had task force officers, when we read it to them, because they were deputies or police officers, their eyebrows would go up and be like, wait, you can shoot him for what? And these people need to be protected. We need to actually get an armed guard for them. So I guess Chris Wray's armed guard needs to expand its reach. We get more TDY from the director's detail to the agent's detail. Maybe we can plus up for a few more $1 billion from Congress. We can plus up with some mercs who can stand by as you do an interview of an American citizen and ask him, knock on his door and say, hey, look, I know that you didn't do anything wrong. We're definitely not looking into you, but you might know some people. Would you be interested in becoming my informant? I'm sure the guy with the slung M4 behind him to protect him from you is not going to really coerce you at all.
Also, it turns out the FBI actually got the ability to protect themselves in these agents in 1935 when they authorized the carrying of firearms. This actually is an old problem that's already been solved. When they were going after Al Capone, they authorized the use of firearms.
Strzrok didn't carry a gun, so he probably didn't.
He probably didn't know about that. Do you think he knows that FBI agents are issued firearms? I don't see a lot of headquarters guys carrying guns, so that makes sense.
No, I mean, they carry it downstairs to that one day every 3 months that they got to go shoot. I'm sure they wear their blue polo and their blue FBI hat and their 511 khakis. And then just go back up to work or whatever you want to call what they do all day long. Just stand around a skiff and sneak their cell phone in there so they can take pictures, which does go on.
Or text their mistress. Let me say that the three things that I think every FBI headquarters agent is guilty of. Ready? Number one, they wear a suit, which is not how people do work in the field. Number two, they eat a salad at lunch because they're vegetarians. And number three, they have an ankle holster that they've never tried to shoot out of. They carry it, but they've never trained out of it. So suits, salads, and ankle holsters are the joke that we make, that my buddies who work Indian country, before I ever met you, we would always go back to your suits and salads, enjoy your ankle holster. That's the three things that I would pin on them every single time. If you ever met one of the suit salad angle holster types?
Oh, of course. I mean, those were always senior executive service people, and they would roll in every 18 months. You know, they would be the ankle holster, and no extra mags, never. They would never even consider that. The only thing
it's already the smallest gun we could carry.
Yes.
They need protection, probably. They probably do.
Well, I mean, maybe we could add a fourth to that because apparently they're all just having affairs with each other.
Yes, that's true. Sexually compromised is the last thing.
Yeah,
compromised. What a great title for a book.
4S. We should put that on their tickets on airplane tickets, just like all the people that flew into January 6th, according to Sonia.
It's so true. And when we talk about the sexual compromised nature of the senior executive service of the FBI, whenever somebody would give us a story about a sexual liaison, it would be a difficulty not figuring out if that was true. The difficulty was finding out which field office it was true about. I just need you guys to understand how much, when Steve and I are out here trying to hurt feelings, and we have no problem doing so, man, the reason why it's a problem is because if you are sexually compromised and you're willing to go out and run around on your spouse, how much are you going to run around on the American people and the obligations you have, or let down them when it comes to the oath? And this is what happens. I mean, these are people who have sold themselves for a job, and they've had absolutely no problem selling you out. They don't care about your rights. They're busy selling out their spouses. Mostly it's men sleeping with women that are inside the bureau, but there's adultery that starts at Quantico Academy. You know, I mean, it goes all the way back. I knew people that were classmates with Asha Ragnapapa, who's that sort of Indian weird looking face chick that is always on CNN and MSNBC. She left FBI after 2 years. I was actually a Chili's waiter for longer than she was an FBI agent, but it's the number one thing in her bio. It's the most proud she's ever been. She was there 2 years, and she couldn't even make it 2 months without starting to sleep with somebody else's husband when she was at the FBI Academy. People who were at the Academy knew it. They actually they got told, hey, knock it off. You guys are making us look bad. And they didn't even stop. They were still going into town together and banging. They made babies and he ran off on her. Go shocker. Like, it's just, these are compromised people. It's a good name for a book, it turns out.
Yeah, for him especially. And that is just a rampant problem. I mean, that was told to me when I was going to the academy. And I wrote about it. I sat down with the applicant coordinator in Atlanta, and she goes, here's your paperwork. Go to Quantico, don't have an affair. And that was her parting comment to me. And eyebrow raised, what are you talking about? She's like, you'll see. And I went there, and everybody's having affairs with everybody. It's just like this dirty secret. It's a hall pass. We had
you know what it is? It's civilian TDYs. Anybody who's ever been in the military knows that there's a concept when you're on temporary duty and you're stationed somewhere else. There's always these guys that go out there, different zip codes don't count, this kind of thing, out of country, out of mind. All these little euphemisms that exist in the military. And so there is that, like, while the cat is away, the mouse will play kind of attitude in certain areas. And the military is terrible about it. It's really one of the worst. That's why military relationships are really tough for people to cultivate. Also, people get married really young. But we're talking about grown-ups with professional backgrounds, professional jobs. One would expect that it would not be a difficulty for people who have a national security clearance and supposedly have been doing the right thing for their whole lives in order to get this top secret clearance to just keep it in their freaking pants for 5 months.
The first word of their motto is fidelity.
It's so bad. It's such a weird own. Like, why would they? I mean, we're pulling the veil back. We always talk about the uncomfortable truths on here. This is an uncomfortable truth that the FBI has been like this for a long time. That it used to be that it didn't stop them from doing their job. But once you corrode that fidelity to your spouse and your integrity is next on the line, you're more than happy to go after your political opponents. There's no bravery anymore because now you need an armed guard, a Praetorian guard to protect the people that are doing the investigation.
Integrity is only a problem for those who have it.
This is the Steve Friend quote, or is it the?
That was my firearm bay instructors at Quantico, and I've just always used it because it's so spot on. I mean, because people would just hold rounds back or cheat whenever they could, and you just say like, "Hey, look, I'll score it. However, integrity is only a problem if you got it."
Yeah, there it is. Okay, so we've got another video. This is number 2. I'm calling this the trophy shot. This, I am not going to call out these people for integrity. I don't think that's a problem. I'm not going to call out their bravery. This is, I believe, Bortak. But this is one of those things where it's the slippery slope. I used to call it bad decision theater. When you're watching someone make a bad decision in real time, if you don't stop the tape and say, hey, no, we can't do this. I want you to reflect on this as a former SWAT team guy, as a guy who worked in local law enforcement, and maybe some of the things that we should be concerned about. We have to call out the good police and the good federal investigators when they make a bad mistake and they do something that's stupid. Let's roll video number 2, if you would, Ryan. And for those of you who are listening to this podcast, what you're hearing is obviously a helicopter footage There are a bunch of men wearing multicam. They're wearing helmets. Some of these guys have night vision on top. They're all slung rifles, and they have a young man in custody. He's wearing a gray hoodie. He was a convicted murderer that escaped from a prison, I believe, in Philadelphia. And they are all lined up. There's probably 25 of them taking a knee in sort of like riser style order. There's a dog there, a canine that's already bit this kid. And, no qualms with them wrapping him up. No qualms with the dog being used. No qualms with bringing him back into custody. I'm glad they did, and they were diligent. But this picture of everybody kind of lining up and posing for it is something that is a little bit concerning to me. I'm curious if that strikes you the same way, Steve. What do you think?
Yes, it does entirely. I did the SWAT thing. We didn't do pictures ever. We would do pictures if somebody was about to leave the team, and we would do a picture for them and basically
in front of the Bearcat.
Exactly.
I used to call those tactical dick pics.
Yes, I know. You've definitely made me feel ashamed for my book cover. But look, a little story on that one too. If you give me that slight detour,
please.
My wife has made us do family pictures every year that we've been together, including before we were married. So we've been together for 14 years. I've done 14 family pictures. Okay. And I hate it. I hate every second. And there was the last winter in Iowa. She said, "Will you wear your SWAT gear for the family pictures?" And I said, "You cannot allow anybody to see these pictures ever
again." Yes, these have to go. Right? They have to go into the vault.
So then I published the book, and they're like, "Hey, do you have any pictures of yourself, wearing a SWAT?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, now America is going to get a chance to see this picture."
Well, it started with Miranda Devine outing you because she wanted some good photos of you, and then we switched over to making it your book cover. So your tactical dick pics have gone far and wide.
Out there, man. But we're exposing far worse things from the FBI than I have to worry about SWAT dick pics.
Well, plus God, what is it? Man makes plans and God laughs. Will you talk about the idea of being in the end zone before with folks and why this is a problem, I think, with this photo?
Yeah, I think in private text with you yesterday, I said, I'm a big believer in the mantra from Lou Holtz. He's like, you don't celebrate when you score a touchdown. You don't spike the football because you act like you've been there before. You act like you expect this outcome. Like you're paid to go get this guy. Acting like this it's as if you did not think you were going to get him. You're that celebratory about it. And I would think his defense is going to have this picture and this video footage to make it look like he was victimized by the police. It's not going to bode well for.
It's definitely not good for the next use of force that these guys are involved in. So this is supposedly the BORTAC team that's out of the northern side, coming out of PA or New York. I have no problem with BORTAC. I think they're awesome. They saved the day in Uvalde. They've saved the day in other places. They're outstanding professionals. This, I think, is a momentary lapse in judgment. I think it's worth them knowing that they can't be doing stuff like this. But that I won't take away from the honor and the bravery and the capabilities of this team. They show up when nobody else will. They are well trained, and they get into really rough terrain and do the right work. I didn't see HRT out there. We would have known because they would have had the $50,000 panos on their heads, even though it was daylight. So we would have known if HRT was out there.
Cool guy beards.
Way more beard. Yeah, tactical Jesus look. What do they call it? Somebody called me. That my old boss was an HRT guy, and he was an awesome human being. He's a great guy. We didn't get along on everything, but he was always fair, and he was honest, and he was a Ranger Battalion guy and a West Pointer, and kind of the people you expect are going to be on HRT. He was a special operator, and had the beard, had the long kind of Jesus level hair, very handsome, very well spoken, and a killer, and just a PT freak, just a savage when it came to working out. He would go out and do like tarmac workouts by himself, and just apparently liked abusing his body. And guy who still has a six-pack over 40 that isn't gay is kind of an interesting move. It's like one of the few exceptions to the rule. I told Ryan, by the way, if he ends up with a six-pack with his working out, guys over 40 with a six-pack tend to be gay in my experience. Most guys that are over 40 have to have kids, and they don't have time for the six-pack workout.
That's stated straight from somebody who's medium fit and over 40.
That's right.
Well done.
I got no time for it by now. I'll come back to it, and I'll tell you people that I'm the second guy. But my boss was one of those guys. He was 100%, American hero material. He was on Operation Red Wing going after Marcus Luttrell, trying to recover him. He was on the recovery team. He, did hard things in hard places on behalf of the U.S. government. And that's the kind of people we want to see. They just have to know that the motto of being a quiet professional is a special operations. It's really a bylaw. You have to go and do those things without telling everybody that this is, we're celebrating like you weren't going to do it. I think you're spot on with the act like you've been there before.
What's your thoughts, especially when you're talking about the silent professionals? And look, I read their books because I admire these guys and what they go through. But all these guys who have now come out of like special forces, SEAL teams, and Delta, and all, and they're writing their memoirs. I think that they have really great stories to tell and really great leadership and experiences. But at the same time, it is sort of in conflict with their motto of being this silent professional who just does these things and doesn't talk about it again. As a prior service person, like, what are your thoughts on those guys doing that?
It's mixed bag because some of it is their stories actually glorify the people that are that have died and let people understand just what these men go through. I think hearing stories from the guys at GBRS, which is a training company, people like DJ Shipley. I listened to his podcast with Sean Ryan, and I literally had tears in my eyes when I was working out in my garage gym in New Mexico. I mean, I was sobbing, man, and I was lifting weights. And it's really hard to do that when you see someone that is so big, so strong, has put so much on the line for the country. Hearing that story is actually important because people need to know what the sacrifice looks like. And it is extreme, and it results in just crushed lives. There is something good about memoirs coming out in that thing after you've left the community, after you're out there, especially if you're going to go and hide names and pseudonyms, but you let people know some of the missions that we do, that our men go forward and do. It's so important. We do as an American people, we send these guys into harm's way and nobody will ever hear about it. And there's something to be said about those being exposed. There's also something about the braggadocious. I would love to sit down with Marcus Luttrell at some point in time because I had a hard time getting through his book when I was active duty because there's so much kind of like bravado and dick swinging is the only way I could explain it. It's like, we're the SEALs and we're the best. It's like your whole team was killed, man. It's hard to read that. It's really, really hard to read it. There may be a reason for that, but some of the bravado is tough to read. The humility of the humble professional, the quiet professional. There are books that are written out there like that. I read them. I really
like Dick Couch.
Dick Couch is amazing.
Yeah, he's totally fair. He's talking about selection. He's not really talking about the missions until you get into some of his later books. But he's an ex-SEAL who's like the most fair about every different service. Like
if you've never read, I think it's called
Warrior Elite.
No, he has another one. That's the one that's the forging of the SEAL team that he rolled through on Buds. He also went through SF selection and followed them as a journalist. And now I can't think of what it's called. I think it's called like Quiet Warrior or Chosen Professional.
Tim Kennedy was in Warrior Elite. He has an alias.
Interesting. He was in that class.
He was.
Yeah, Dick Couch, folks, if you want to read a book about like what what the training looks like to go through, just the selection process for the SEALs or for the Green Berets and Special Forces, check out anything that Dick Couch writes. He's a stud from the Vietnam era. He walked away from it all, and then he goes and glorifies the men that are going through it, uses pseudonyms. That's the right way to do it. I mean, he absolutely is great. And he's also doing the thing like, I know how hard this is because what I've done, and I want to glorify somebody else's story. That is the epitome of what I think the quiet professional looks like. Dick Couch, awesome books. I've read all of his stuff because it was important to me when I was looking to, what branch I wanted to go into the military and how I wanted to train, who I wanted to train with. And I may have missed the mark. I probably should have gone into the Army. It's the guys that I'm friends with that are Green Berets are, they're the best, hands down. Guys that are SEALs can be the best, but they tend to be also like really good at. I mean, I have the right hair right now to be a SEAL. It turns out we would, as the guys in the Air Force would always get made fun of for their hair as well. I want to pivot over and talk about the PornHub tapes. If you want to stick around, Steve, you let me know. We've got an interview. So we're going to play a video, folks, that has been out there on, it was released yesterday on social media. It's getting a little bit of traction. You may have seen it on Louder with Crowder. We're going to play a little taste of it. It's 11 or 12 minutes long. So go to my timeline or go to Arden's timeline, and they are linked below. There's a new organization in town. They're called Sound Investigations. They're doing the hidden camera work, and this may be more important than anything Project Veritas ever did. I think it's more important than what OMG is doing, James O'Keefe. This thing is going after the number 9 trafficked website in the entire world, which is known as PornHub. It's owned by a group called MindGeek. MindGeek is the parent company for a number of these like tube type things. So I'm going to play. This is going to be a lot of listening to somebody else hidden camera, but I cannot promote this enough. I need you guys to kind of check this out. We need to make this stuff relevant. And the reason why it's so important is because PornHub has been knowingly allowing child pornography and exploitation from sexual abuse like rape on their platform. And this is the number 7 employee. The company's been around for about 12 years. He's the number 7 employee of the number 9 biggest website that's being trafficked on the web. It's very important when you understand these guys have equity shares. They bring these people on with giving them access to the company. This guy's part of the parent company. So let's listen to that. And then we have an interview with one of the journalists from Sound Investigations who helped found it. So we're going to play both of those for you. Clip number 1, if you would, Ryan, let's go ahead and run that. And Steve and I may have time to reflect on it afterwards.
No, it's all good. I'm not going to get caught. How are you going to tell me, like, who's in that video of the girl's not showing her face? Like, that wouldn't hold in court. That would be the loophole that I always, like, I look at that and I'm like, that's stupid, but everybody is just kind of rolling with it.
Why don't they just roll with it? Why don't they say something?
It costs money.
Who exploits the loophole?
Fucking everybody. Everyone. You make a lot of money.
Do rapists use it, or?
Of course. We've brought it up to the CPO, we brought it up to the CLO, and they're both telling us it's all good. And the CPO is especially telling us, like, fuck off, it's all good. Like, stop.
So they know the
like,
risk.
shut up. No, it's all good. I'm not gonna get caught. It's fine.
But what if, like, the government was to find out about this loophole? What would they do?
I don't know. They're not gonna do shit. They'll do nothing. Because they're dumb. They don't know shit. They're not qualified to identify the loophole.
Meet Mike Farley. Farley is a product manager at PornHub who has been working at PornHub for more than 10 years. In fact, Farley tells our undercover reporter he was one of PornHub's first employees.
I stick around because when we first made the site, there was like, when I got hired there was 6 people. And now we're like 300.
Wait. 10 years ago, there were 6 people at PornHub?
Yeah.
PornHub is the most trafficked pornography website and one of the most trafficked websites overall in the world. PornHub is commonly called a tube site, allowing the general public to upload videos. PornHub's parent company, MindGeek, now rebranding as ALO, owns many big-name porn sites. News reports and lawsuits have claimed PornHub is complicit in abusers uploading illegal videos, and PornHub has publicly claimed to have cleaned up its site. We sent an undercover journalist to talk with Mike Farley and other MindGeek employees to get the truth. Watch the following admissions.
Do you think anything slips through the cracks?
Of course. 100%.
How?
I don't know, because it's stupid. Because at the end of the day, it's like, how are you going to tell me, like, who's in that video of the girl's not showing her face? You're, like, trying to match boobs and birthmarks on their butts and stuff. Like, you're trying to, I know this guy.
So that's just a little taste of it, folks. This goes on for about 12 minutes. There's a lot of undercover footage. I want to cut away and go to the interview. Last night, I was able to connect with Arden Young. She's one of the founders of this new group, Sound Investigations, obviously doing that undercover journalist type stuff that exposes people where they're at. And I want to bring her on. We're going to do that. We're going to show that interview to you. This is about an 8-minute thing. And then Steve and I will come here and wrap it up and have a little reflection, since I know Steve worked on child pornography cases. So Ryan, if you want to roll our interview there, I think people will find this interesting. Okay, and my friend Arden Young has joined us, and she's going to be telling us a little bit about Sound Investigations. Arden, when did you start working with Sound Investigations?
Yes, thank you, Kyle. Thanks for having me on. I started working, I actually formed Sound Investigations with a friend of mine earlier this year, like the end of February. And ever since, we've been investigating PornHub.
And how did you pick that as a target?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So a while back, I had read an article in the New York Times. It was published in 2020 by Nicholas Kristof called The Children of PornHub. And it featured some victims of child exploitation. And those instances had been videoed and uploaded to PornHub over and over and over again without consent, of course. And through years and years of requesting it be taken down, nothing was done. So lots of lawsuits filed over the years. PornHub had claimed to clean up its act, but my friend and I had a hunch that that was not the case. So I guess we were right.
That's a terrible thing to be right about. I'm kind of curious about how you grew up and where you came from. Will you tell people where you're from?
Absolutely. I'm from Los Angeles, California, born and raised. I grew up in the entertainment industry as an actress. I have a background in acting and TV and film. And I feel like that's contributed a lot to my desire to do undercover work.
There's a lot of kids that are in the entertainment space that at a young age are either exploited or moved into exploited type roles. Did you feel any kinship with kind of feeling like you had to protect them?
Yeah, I did a little bit. You hear horror stories, and I'm grateful that nothing horrific happened to me, but I definitely found myself in not great situations and heard really, really bad stories from friends of mine who had been abused. And it was a motivating factor in getting involved in trying to get justice for victims of exploitation.
So you're looking at Pornhub. You guys go in. How do you even approach a target like that? Can you talk about some of the techniques?
Yeah, I'll try to be as general as possible because we're still actually investigating. But as you can see, I met with Mike Farley in the video. It was technically a date, even though it wasn't a real date. But we met twice, and that was that. He opened up right away on the first meeting, and on the second meeting, he continued to expand on the questions I was asking him, and I walked away with the information that I wanted.
And when you're letting people talk like that, is it, what are your reactions? What are your nerves like as you're listening and sitting
I
there?
get really, really nervous. I really do. I tend to just retreat into myself, remain quiet, ask simple questions, don't overcomplicate it too much. And but I do get really nervous.
And do the people that you're talking to in this type of investigation ever pick up on that?
I don't think so. I think because they don't know me, they just figure maybe I'm a little bit quieter naturally.
Or shy?
Yeah. But I think that it actually helps in a way because as an undercover journalist, you don't want to be talking your head off. You want your subject to be talking their head off.
And when you leave all that room, they tend to fill it in for you, it seems like.
Yeah, people tend to want to fill awkward silences.
So the stuff that's being discussed in this video that we just saw, it's pretty horrific to be able to bring up, whether it's on a date or a friendly conversation. Did you see that there was a concern? Like, it doesn't seem like any concern for children.
No, there was no concern for children. Mike was extremely matter of fact in how he was answering my questions, and that was shocking to me, even though I know I shouldn't have been shocked. But how matter of fact, and sometimes his tone was a little bit braggy, it did bother me. But no concern for children. The only concern was for the bottom line. It was really interesting talking to Mike, though, because he actually expressed to me he doesn't like the porn industry. He doesn't like pornography. He doesn't like working for an adult company. He's just been there for so long. He's been there for over 10 years. He was the 7th person hired at PornHub ever.
Whoa.
And that's why he sticks around.
That's kind of wild. And I guess the question is, what does that say about our society when that's the kind of value system people are going on? What's your impression?
It's this really scary time. I heard someone say today that it used to be you had to pay a lot of money to be able to view porn and TV was free, where nowadays TV is really expensive with all the different streaming things and everything like that, but porn is free. And that's completely true how society has evolved over the years very quickly with the internet.
It's interesting. I had never thought about those two, but that's kind of a scary comparison. I guess the other thing that I had someone reflect on once is that we don't really know what it means for people to have access to pornography 24/7, anywhere they go on a phone. They could literally be watching pornography of whatever sort of deviant flair they want, particularly some of this awful stuff, in a cab on the way to a date. They could see anything they wanted.
And I don't want to give away too much, but you are going to see Mike talk more about that and his personal feelings on pornography. And it's actually pretty shocking.
Okay. I will look forward to that. You grew up in an era when that was a thing. That was not the case for my childhood, but that was, you're young enough. You're quite a bit younger than I am. This is the world that you grew up in, that you started dating in, got married in, and so on. So it's like, has that changed the way that human beings look at each other, you think?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And don't take it from me. You'll be able to take it from Mike Farley, who actually agrees with you.
Okay, so we've got a little bit more. I'll leave that as a teaser. Why don't you tell people how they can follow and support the work that you're doing if they find this stuff interesting?
Absolutely, yeah. We're going to be releasing multiple more Pornhub videos. Each video is going to feature a new employee, sometimes multiple new employees. of Pornhub and its parent company, MindGeek. You can follow us on Twitter at SoundInvestig without the Asians because of the character limit. And I'm on Twitter as Arden_young_. And we're just going to be trickling out those releases and hoping that lawmakers want to hold Pornhub accountable.
I hope they are as well. Have you had some contact with Congress that's favorable?
We're in talks. Yeah, it's really exciting. We're in the early stages, but we are getting the kind of interest we were hoping to get.
One would hope that protecting children would be pretty easy for them to bite off, huh?
Yeah, and we're really, really hoping this is going to be bipartisan. I think it's something that easily both sides of the aisle can come together on.
Let's pray for that too. All right, I will make sure that all of your descriptions and your links are below, and I really appreciate you joining me and talking about this, and I guess that's a kind of a cliffhanger teaser, so we will look forward to what's coming out next on there. Folks, if you're not following my social media, by all means follow it too, because I will be boosting the signal of what Arden and unnamed partner are doing for Sound Investigations.
Thank you so much, Kyle.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for jumping on with me.
Thank you.
Ooh, we got to unmute. There we go, folks. So Sound Investigations and Arden Young, unnamed partner, founded and moving forward in the space. So there's going to be a lot more of that coming out. She's really exposing something really ugly out there. Steve, you want to kind of reflect on that? I know you've got young boys in the world, and you worked for child pornography cases as well.
Well, it's just too large of an actual threat to fully address, to fully provide all the personnel to look into. This is something that it's not regional because it's digital. It transcends all boundaries. It is, for me, I think we need to adapt the way that we actually bring people into law enforcement. You ask the person, you want to be a cop, right? Are you okay with carrying a gun? Are you okay with potentially inflicting violence on somebody? And it has to be yes to be a cop, right? Mm-hmm. I would be in favor of adding a third. Are you in favor of working child pornography and child exploitation cases? Because right now you can beg out of that from a law enforcement standpoint and just say, look, I can't handle that and I don't want to work it, and you're not forced to. We have to address it. It needs to be prioritized because it's just gotten out of control, and it's only getting worse as these guys get more sophisticated. The police are always multiple steps behind. I think, was it yesterday or the day before? I saw, it was my old area in Iowa. They had a guardsman get popped for child pornography, and my neighbor reached out to me he was just blown away by it. And I said, man, you don't have no idea. It's all over the place. You go, down your street, and I would ensure that there would be at least one of your neighbors is doing it. And it needs to be prioritized and addressed. And we can only do that. We can only do what we can do. I mean, obviously, a lot of this footage is coming from overseas in these third world countries. We can't really stop that. We can try to go get and arrest the pedophiles, but there's just more content out there. The only thing that I can think of is more manpower, and then also further education for the kids, because so many of these kids are self-producing. They don't see a problem with it. And I even joked about it. I said, at some point in the future, kids are not going to be able to be sexploited, because every kid will have put something out. And they're going to say, well, I don't care if you show my mom a picture of my junk. She's seen it before because, all my friends did it too. And it doesn't embarrass me. It doesn't embarrass any of us. And I that's not a good situation to be in, but at the rate we're going, that might be the only way. I do want to actually also point out, having watched the footage of him talking to her.
Yeah, just before you do, folks, if you haven't seen what we talked about with Mickey Willis, we actually addressed a lot of this stuff, the sort of shock value that goes on and the dopamine hit that kids are getting, and sometimes the financial reward for it. So check out our interview with Mickey Willis talking about exploitation. Carry on.
Yeah, and a lot of those, it's a lot of boys actually in high school age that get roped into it. They'll see a picture of some hot chick. They think, oh, she's really into me online, and then be enticed to send a picture, self-produce. And then next thing they know, they're getting blackmailed. And there's actually been some suicides as a result of that, because these kids are just humiliated and they don't want their family to find out, and they can't afford to send the $500. And once they get you on the hook, that's the concern that we're seeing with our political leaders. Once they have blackmail material, or you've compromised again, you're always compromised. You can't ever get yourself out from underneath that. But back to the video, she did.
Let me offer one thing on that too, folks. If that does happen, and this is we provide information here as well. I had a neighbor come to me with exactly that situation in one of my duty posts. I don't want to say too much more. And the concern was teenage boy, lured in, sent off a picture, now asking for money, send me a gift card, whatever it is. The right answer is to ignore that. There's a very, very small possibility that that person has the ability to expose that photograph. Mostly no. They are then complicit in a federal crime in this country. So that's part one. Part two is their goal is to get you to send them something because it's a profit margin and they're going to move on to the next target afterwards. So if you ignore that, that is the only thing you can do. And you can teach your kids this right up front. If that exploitation attempt happens, you simply move on. You just go, there's a small possibility that we're going to have some exposure and we'll deal with it if it comes up. And more importantly, we love you and we support you. And you've learned a valuable lesson today, and don't send your junk to people that you don't know. And then you move on with your life and you kind of watch over your back for a few days, and then it won't happen. Like 99% of the time, nothing will happen. And it's just a really scary lesson. You need to let your kids know they can come to you with that stuff.
It's the Nigerian print scam. They
Correct.
make it up in volume. Just ignoring it is really the best option you have, because the local law enforcement is not going to have the capability to track down somebody who's on the Ivory Coast who's trying to get a Walmart gift card from you. And that guy is not really interested in hunting you down. If he thinks he's got you on the hook, maybe to a certain extent, but he makes his money by getting 1,000 kids, and then hopefully a couple of them actually comply with his demands for money.
That's right.
But that guy, he was never making eye contact with her when he was admitting to what was going on. He's clearly ashamed of how PornHub is behaving, and that's every FBI agent now.
Mm-hmm. That's why this ties in.
They know what's going on.
People were like,
"Are you an FBI agent?"
He does. So people were saying it in the comments to Arden's Twitter thread. They were like, "Are you proud of yourself? You just ruined this man and his career, and he'll never be. Nobody will ever hire him again." Guess what? Let him be a harbinger of what comes for those who do not do good when they have the opportunity to.
Yeah.
Being complicit makes you compromised.
I agree, which is why I've now sent out and responded when I've gotten the hate messages back on Twitter about U.S. Treasury Special Agent Michael S. Baruchio from Atlanta, who was the guy in the video who was knocking on the gentleman's door, trying to get him to be a source, trying to coerce him to being a source and informing on his neighbors.
He's the chubby guy that claims to be with the FBI, even though he's with the Treasury, because he's a TFO, but he's ashamed of his actual job.
Yeah, and his LinkedIn is still up, by the way. And look, I'm not trying to dox the guy, but look, that's a publicly available profile. And
it's a publicly available video, and he showed his publicly available credentials to identify him as a public official doing his public duty in public.
Yes.
That's not doxing.
No, it's definitely not.
There's nothing worse than that than showing somebody's name tag as they work as a law enforcement officer anywhere else, because we do that all the time.
Provide your badge number, and they definitely don't need to have a protective detail like Peter Strzrok wants them to have.
That's right. That's all true. Let's leave it at that. I think that's a pretty good wrap up for the hour here that we've been spending together. I appreciate you joining me as usual, folks. Follow Steve Friend. It's at Real Steve Friend on Twitter. You can follow him at Real_Steve Friend on Truth Social. You can check out his book, True Blue. It is on Amazon. And we're looking at doing maybe a Steve Friend and Garrett O'Boyle stream. I think you guys might want to see that. So put it in the comments what you think it should be called. They've already got some ideas for doing it. And I told them I would help produce this sort of thing on the weekend. If you guys are looking for content on the weekend, let us know when you think that would be. What would be the best time for you to see a live stream with them where you could interact? Steve, is that something you guys are still thinking is going to be?
Oh yeah, man. We already planned out the pilot episode. We just need to get Casey to on the music for us.
I got some other Casey music. It might be a little bit more fun.
All right, let's do it.
Some uplifting stuff. All right, thanks, buddy. I hope you have a great weekend, and we'll close this thing out. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to the Kyle Seraphin Show. It is streamed live from Liberty Hill, Texas, from our kind of wild studio here that some of you did not know we had. Here we are. This is the studio. That's what it looks like. Working here on the ones and twos. We stream live at 9:30 Eastern Time on the East Coast, and that's 8:30 here in Texas, America. Please make sure you follow us on Rumble. It's rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. That's where our Bumpin' Live chat is, and you guys were going off today. I saw you were engaging. Had a new subscriber to the channel, K Santos 414. Thanks for joining the channel. Thanks for supporting the channel. I think it's $5 if you want to subscribe. That goes to us. It just keeps our content in. I don't think you get anything special except you get some emojis you can play with. But we love seeing you guys do that, and I know some of you wanted to support it, so we're very, very appreciative. Almost 700 5-star reviews going on right now. So leave your 5-star review on Apple, and you can have yours read on the show, like T-Gam-Bogey. T-Gam-Bogey says, interviews with 6 Jan incarcerated men, 5 stars. Kyle, that was a great podcast. My heart goes out to the interviewees, and I'm glad you gave Americans a chance to hear from them. You should always know that there are commercials cutting in unannounced. that interrupted the interviews. That's interesting to note. I did not know that, but I guess Apple has monetized our podcast. Maybe we can gain a little bit of that. I don't know if they thought they were going to pay us or not. We might be moving over to Spotify too. We're hosting with a different group right now. Folks, you can follow us there on podcast, the audio podcast on Apple, on Spotify, on iHeartRadio. We do it on Podbean. We even stream live to Facebook if you guys want to see it there, or on YouTube for all like 2 or 3 of you. It looks like there's 9 of you that are watching on YouTube. So thanks to the 9 of you that are on YouTube right now, one of which is probably my wife. It does continue because you guys are supporting us. Make sure you're supporting Ryan Matta as well. You can see him at Ryan Matta Media on Twitter. You can follow his Rumble channel as well and see him on LFA TV at 2 p.m. Eastern. Folks, we will see you after the weekend. So thanks so much for supporting the Kyle Seraphin Show, and have a safe, lovely weekend.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.